Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you are tuning in. This is the Reset Room, and I am your host and transformational empowerment architect, Neil M. Jackson. And I am so happy to be here. Listen, we talk about all different types of resets on this show. So, again, we've established reset to mean when you need to fix something, adjust something. So, like, there's going to be some times when life is lifing. So, what do we do? What types of changes or adjustments do we make? And what I am an advocate of is first being able to recognize when situations call for a reset, when you are able to see the various things that's going on in your life. Sometimes things go awry, things don't always go according to plan, but guess what? That is okay because things not going according to plan is actually according to plan. That's actually going according to plan. Why? Because we are human. There's no way in the world, I don't care how great a planner or organizer you are, you can never anticipate everything that life is going to throw at you. All you really can do is just try your best to be ready for it. And so sometimes, yes, you can plan for it, you can know in advance. But even when those things, those curveballs start coming at you, guess what? You are still able to succeed. It's just going to take an extra step, an adjustment that maybe you did not anticipate. But what reset is all about is saying, you know what? It might have hit me in the stomach because I wasn't ready for it. Might have got hit on the shoulder. Might have got caught in the throat, right? Because I had no idea it was coming. It might have left a bruise. It might have left a mark. And I don't just mean literally, I mean figuratively. This could be literally as well. It could be both. So there was something that happened to you that you were not quite ready for. And sometimes these things that happen, these unexpected occurrences, these are not just one and done situations. Sometimes it keeps happening. So it was a job that you may have lost, or maybe you got the new job and that job said that you needed to travel, but now it wasn't just traveling this one time, relocating this one time. Every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, you have to move. So there's constant adjustments, or you become a parent and you've never been a parent before. So now you have to adjust to having this child. And just as soon as you get used to one stage of their life, here comes another stage. Constant adjustments, right? That is really what this thing called life is all about. And I'm a proponent in believing that the different resets that we have to make, they don't just fall in one category. I believe that there are a myriad of categories and four specific ones. Physical. There's a physical reset that you have to that may occur to you, and resets that you may have to make, such as when things happen to your body, to your health. Those are things that you have to make adjustments for. Financially, when the money starts acting funny, when things happen that you didn't know were going to happen. So those are those financial resets, but there are also spiritual resets as well as what we're going to talk about today, which are mental resets. So a lot of times things start in the mind. The Bible says, as a man thinks, it says in his heart. But what we really know is this: what you think, so are you, right? As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So whatever it is that I'm thinking about, that's where my mind is going to go. So if I'm thinking positive thoughts, then it's going to help me to make positive actions, right? So that's the whole thing. Is when life, because I don't even want to say things, when life starts happening to you, being able to kind of stay on top of it. And it's not always easy. And I am not trying to act as though it is. It's not always, something that doesn't affect you, because there are going to be some heavy things in life that happens. You might might have to deal, you might lose somebody, whether it's through a relationship that might unexpectedly end or where someone unexpectedly passes, right? So that causes for us to make adjustments. But death, the physical death, physically losing someone, that is not the only thing in life that we have to make adjustments for. And many times, if I'm being honest, the greatest adjustments happen that we have to make is what happens in our mind, right? When there are situations that causes various emotions. So whether it be grief, whether it's disappointment, when you get to a place where you feel like you're a failure, these are all deep, heavy things that causes us to really take a step back and kind of do that assessment yet again, and I always say this, to me, you don't necessarily have to undergo the same type of deep reassessment when it's a positive situation, right? Like, yes, there are still adjustments that need to be made when positive things happen. So, like, let's say if you were pre-diabetic, like was my case, and then it gets reversed. So yeah, it's great that it gets reversed, but I don't have to make the same type of mental adjustments to, is more so, hey, let's maintain this, or from a financial standpoint, when you get a raise, you don't, because it doesn't strike you the same mentally, it's really when those negative things or those perceived negative situations occur where we then have to kind of grab ourselves, hold on, and I'm gonna let myself feel these feelings, but then I got to get back in the game because the good things don't really take you out the game. You know what I mean? And that's the bottom line of what I'm saying, that it's the negative things, the bad things, those hard things that we were not expecting, that when it happens, it's like, okay, what do I do now? And so that's what really calls for that reset. And so before I go further, I definitely want to stop really quickly and invite you to connect with me across social media platforms. If you haven't done it already, hopefully you have, but just in case, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube at my name is Tennille. And when you get to YouTube, as I always remind you guys, don't forget to take that extra second, click on that subscribe button so that way you can be notified every time I upload new content to the platform. And also, do not forget, guys, you can go to my website, which is mynameistenille.com. And when you go to that website, you'll be able to see more of what it is I do and what it is that I offer to you all. There are various communities that I'm building, one that's for women and one that's for creatives, as well as upcoming events, various ways to work with me. It's a myriad of information that's on that website. So again, if you have not already done so, then I do invite you to go to the website, which is mynameistenille.com. Now let's go ahead and let's jump back into today's show where we're talking about what to do when you need a mental reset. And matter of fact, let's do this. Hold on. We want to talk about what to do when your mind needs a reset. That is the topic. So when you come on today, whether you watch this live or you watch it on replay, that way you guys can know what is the foundational question that the show is based upon. And you can always feel free to comment, knowing that I do try to, come back and check on these as I get the ability and the opportunity to. So let's jump right into it. What to do when your mind needs a reset. So first of all, let's ask the question of, how do you know when your mind needs a reset? And I think that's a great question to address because, again, I have to first know there's a problem before I can solve the problem. So, how do I know when it's time for a mental reset? Many times that's answered by looking at not just our life, but the reaction that we're having to life. So if I say something like, I'll use a word that we know, burnout. when you are at the place where you literally have no more gas left, like you've given all that you can, or for some people, burnout looks like when you get short, so meaning normally you're kind of a patient person, but now everything has you snipping at people. You're always in a bad mood, or it always seems like you have an attitude, or people are like, hold on, what you snapping at me for, when it could just be a simple question, but it's like you're just constantly on edge, you're running on fumes, you don't have anything left. That's one of the ways where you can kind of know, I need to take a little bit of time because something is going on. When you have another way, when you have encountered disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. So maybe it was, you thought you were going to get this raise, but it went to, you didn't get it, or you thought you were getting a promotion, but it went to somebody else. You planned for something and it fell through, or like when you have experienced disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, you're probably going to need a reset. When you have lost people who are close to you, and again, whether this is a physical death or just the end of a relationship, there is grief that's going to happen naturally. A lot of times I found that we try to suppress grief because for whatever reason we feel that grieving makes us weak, and I don't want to be perceived as weak, so I'm not going to grieve. I'm not going to allow myself to cry. I'm not going to allow myself to acknowledge that I miss this thing, this person, this relationship. I'm not going to allow myself to acknowledge, my feelings about how it is. I'm just going to force myself to keep going, to move on anyway. So if any of these things, and there are so many others, but definitely burnout, disappointment, grief, those are probably three of the biggest issues that kind of signal, yeah, you need to reset, because our minds are not limitless, right? It's only so many blows you can take without it, or until it begins to impact you. You take so many hits, and our bodies are meant to survive. So your mind even goes into survival mode. You know what I mean? And so you have to get to a place where you're not just reactive, but you become proactive. And I think the I'm trying to find a better way of saying it, but the sad part, this is the best way I can say it. The sad fact is that for many people, it's not until you pass out, it's not until you're in the hospital, it's not until you have had to endure something bad happening to you that you then address whatever the issue is. So in short, we typically are reactive to life and life situations as opposed to proactive. Well, Tennille, I thought you just said that you can't always prepare for things. That is also true and is very true. So I'm not saying that you can predict when the next tragedy is going to occur. But what I am saying is once that tragedy occurs, give yourself grace and allow yourself to have a reaction, allow yourself to have an emotion. Like, you don't have to live in autopilot land. You don't have to live in, how you doing? I'm good. You're not good. When things happen, when bad things happen, you're not good. And that's okay. Does the fact that you're not good mean that you're weak? No. Does the fact that you're not good mean that now you're somehow incapable? No. But the fact that something bad happened, it means that you're human and you need time to deal with it. You need time to experience it. You need time to feel those feelings because that's natural. And if you don't allow yourself that time, then your body is going to take it whether you give it to it or not. And y'all know I'm always good for a story. I'm always good for having to share, what has happened to me in real time, because the unfortunate truth is that I have endured. I've experienced a lot of stuff, okay? And so here's the thing. I'll go to when my mother passed away. When my mother passed away, I was 6.5 months pregnant with my first daughter. And obviously, losing my mother at 22 is mind blowing, right? And especially because I was not ready. And looking back, I really believe that I was more so in denial and allowing that to be masked as faith. Um, and I want to be very careful in describing this. So, yes, you can always believe that God is able to do things. That is faith. And not just believing that he can, but when it goes against logic, because logic and faith are polar opposites, right? And so yeah, I wanted to believe that my mother was going to be better. Okay. My mother had stage 4 cancer. She had been told, in October, they had given her 6 months to live. They said, you're stage 4, we give you 6 months. Around April, which was a 6 month time. And they were trying to figure out how it was that she was still, still moving and all of these things. And so they were looking at it and it was like, okay, well, they're steadily giving her more time, but not understanding how she's still here. So by the time July came, at the point of July, let me see, I want to say it's June. June, she was on hospice. So she was in the hospital and she was on hospice in June. And she kept saying that she wanted to go home. She was saying if she was going to die, that she did not want to die in the hospital. She'd rather die at home. So we talked to the doctors and we were able to bring her home. And at that point, they had taken the catheter, or I don't know if that's the right word because I know what a catheter is, but there was a device that they had inside of her where they were feeding her in the hospital through this device because it was hard for her to swallow. And so when we took her home, they took the device out because, again, they were not giving her much time to live. Well, here it is in July, and my mom is she's still here, and they're like, well, the cancer is spread everywhere. And but she would say to them, like, I'm hungry and I want to eat, but she just couldn't eat. And I remember talking to the nurse, and they were like, well, because she's fighting it, but her body is breaking down. So they were explaining all of these things. And the point that I'm trying to make is that for me, I did not entertain any thoughts that my mother would not make a full recovery. I was not giving time, energy to any thoughts that would even suggest that she would not be here. And while in the moment, I don't necessarily regret how I felt, because I do believe that it's important to have faith. But I also feel that, and again, this is over what, 24 years ago. Um, so now, being 24 years older, I understand that there was a way that I could have done both. I understand that I could have still had my faith and um allowed myself to come to terms with the fact that my mother may not be here. So in other words, Lord, if it be your will, then please allow her to stay here. But if it's not in your will, then allow me to be okay with that too. That was not a 22-year-old's prayer. 22-year-old prayer was, God, I know you're able to heal her, so I'm just expecting you to heal her, and I don't want to think about nothing else, because if I think about anything that's not that, that means that I'm doubting. 46-year-old knows your will and God's will are not always one and the same, but your will as a believer should always be that your will aligns with God's will. So that whole spirit of nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. Because I think that sometimes we feel like that God always has to do what we want when that's not the case. But God will always make sure that He does what's best. And sometimes we don't understand how what He deems as being best for us is best for us, because our flesh can get in the way, and flesh is hurting. Flesh doesn't want to lose a loved one. Flesh doesn't want to let go. Flesh doesn't want to start over. But God says in His word that all things work together for good. So even that momentary loss, even that momentary, hard time is still going to somehow work together for your good. So the point that I'm making is that because I just had, a one-sided faith, all it was, Lord, heal her. That's it. When it didn't happen the way that I thought it was going to happen, it really affected me, right? And I remember at her funeral, oh, I was like boo-hooing, because it was so many different thoughts going in my head all at the same time. Um, Wondering if somehow my faith had failed, wondering if did I mess up? Did I miss something? Did I, so internalizing a lot of it, feeling like maybe somehow I fell short. It never was that God fell short. There was a time when I was angry with God, because I felt like that He owed me something when He didn't. Again, and that's why I love God so much. This is kind of sidebar, but I love God so much because He understands when we're going to be human, and He understands when our flesh is going to kind of reign, and He gives us that grace, right? But the point is, during this funeral homegoing service, I was just crying so hard, because I still couldn't believe that my mom was gone, and coming to terms with the fact that I got to live the rest of my life without my best friend, and I'm about to be a mom, and I don't have anybody to direct me in this next journey of my life. Like all the things, and I'm steadily just crying, crying, crying. And there were so many different people who said to me, well, you don't want to cry because crying will hurt the baby. Crying will hurt the baby. And what I also knew was that I was not trying to hurt my baby. And so I stopped crying, but not just that day. I stopped crying for the next 7 years. Like, and it might seem extreme, but also understand that I had that daughter in November of 2002, another daughter December 2004, another daughter January 2006, and another daughter October 2008. And so in my mind, because in many cases I'm a very literal person, and so in my mind, if I'm pregnant, I can't cry because that's going to hurt the baby. Like, I didn't understand what was actually meant at the point when I was told that. And so I took it literally. And so seeing this how like 6 years of my life I was pregnant, then I never felt like it was the right time to cry. Like, what I should have done was to get a better understanding at that point of, well, when can I cry? Or how do I grieve? Or what's a way to release without causing pain to my child if I'm pregnant? But I didn't ask those things because, again, 22-year-old Tennille didn't know to ask those things. 22-year-old Tennille just took it literally. And so for 7 years, I didn't cry. For 7 years, I lived on autopilot. For 7 years, I did not allow myself to grieve. I did not allow myself to really think about my mom, to have any, I didn't, hear her voice. I didn't do any of those things because that would really break me down. And I thought that I wasn't supposed to do that. You know what I mean? And I remember it was 2009, and I don't remember what the reason was, but something happened. There was some good news, and just on autopilot, I dialed our phone number, uh, and it wasn't until that do do do. I'm sorry, the number you have reached has been disconnected. When I heard that, I lost it. It's like that was the first time that not just that it hit, but that I allowed it to hit. And you might be saying, well, how for 7 years did you not deal with it? Well, because in my mind, I just programmed myself to just say, well, I'll talk to mom later, like, cause you're just so busy, I'm a young, newlywed with all of these kids I'm taking care of. So life was just busy. And keeping in mind that I moved out when I was 19. So I was used to living my life without seeing my mom every day. And when I moved out, like cell phones were just becoming a thing, right? So not phones as we now know them, but like just a brick cell phone that was just becoming a thing. Nobody had internet. There was no Facebook in 1999, or if it was, I don't think Facebook was out in 1999. So like you just the way that you spoke to people was either on a landline phone or you visited them, and when I moved out at 19, I was a full-time student and I had a full-time job. So, and I was living on my own. I didn't have time really to see my mom on a regular basis, but I still talked to her when I could. So that was, I think that was like how I mentally dealt with it. I just put it on the, okay, I'm gonna get around to, but I stayed on the go. So anyway, this particular day in 2009, when I called home to share or call to share the news with my mom, and I got that message that the phone number had been disconnected, and I absolutely lost it. I was in my car, and I was in the car by myself, and when I say the tears that came, the grief, like everything came flooding down all at once, because now it's not necessarily that I'm coming to terms, like I knew she was gone, but I was just allowing myself to feel it for the first time. You know what I mean? And if you don't know what I mean, let me say this. There are times when you prevent yourself from feeling things. But then there are times when you allow yourself to just feel whatever it is, for better or for worse. So for the first 7 years after my mom left, because there was so many other things going on that we ain't got time. That's this show and beyond. My life had been life and so hard. Um, I didn't have time really even for me, and I was just trying to figure out how to keep going. And so I didn't allow myself to think. I just kept moving. And so here, when this call happened, there was nobody else in the car with me. There was nobody else to take care of. There was nobody to tend to. So I didn't have anything but opportunity. There was nothing but time and opportunity to now just be alone with my thoughts. There were no distractions. There was no, so I had to deal with it then. And when I say just how hard it hit me. And so, what I'm saying when we're talking today's show about recognizing when you need that reset, You don't want to take you 7 years, because what you don't realize is that there is so much of your life that has actually adjusted just to allow you to survive, because there are things that you don't think about, like your mental health, the health, the welfare of your mental health matters. And again, I say we don't always talk about mental health like we should in the society. Is getting better, where holistically we do encourage mental health days. Holistically, we are encouraging it's okay to not be okay. Well, I came up in time before that became a thing. You know what I mean? And it didn't always used to be okay to not be okay. It didn't used to always be okay to cry. When I was going through what I was going through with my mom, it was encouraged heavily to be okay. Whether you was okay or not, figure it out, be okay. But what I'm telling you all is that that is not how you're going to handle things when something traumatic happens. And I don't care whether or not somebody else validates that it's traumatic for you. I don't care. Like, there is not an, or maybe it is a book written, I don't know. But there is, to me, there is not like this huge list that's okay, these are the things you can be traumatized by, but not these things. These are the things that can trigger you, but not these things. That ain't that. Like, when something has triggered you, when something has traumatized you. It does not have to be an approved list. It does not have to be the same things that triggered or traumatized your friends, your family members, your siblings, your spouse. If something triggers you, if something is traumatic for you, that's enough to deal with it then. If you lose that job and it hurts, allow yourself to feel the pain. Allow yourself the space and grace to cry, to scream, to whatever it is that you need to do that's rationally so within reason, so not hurting somebody else or doing anything like that, not even hurting yourself, but cleanse. Crying is natural. It allows you to cleanse yourself. See, these are things, and this is why I keep saying, like, therapy is so important. And no, I am not a therapist. I'm not a licensed counselor, but I am one who's had my fair share of traumatic situations. I'm one who has gone to therapy. I am one who, have talked to different types of, regardless of the name, whether it's counselor, whether it's therapist, whether it's psychiatrist. I've seen them all. And I don't have any shame or embarrassment about any of them, because the same way that I will be an advocate and am an advocate about making sure that your physical health is intact, I'm the same advocate to make sure that your mental health is intact. Because if your mental health is not intact, then you're not going to have the capacity or the wherewithal to make sure that your physical health remains intact. Because it really does matter. And again, this is why I'm saying there's only so many things that you can go through before you have a breakdown, nervous breakdown, before you burn out, before you spiral, before you hit depression. Like, and you want to do your best to deal with those things before you get to that point. You understand what I'm saying? You want to do your best to be proactive so that as soon as that thing happens, whatever that thing is, that breakup, that divorce, that layoff, that death, whatever the hurt, the pain, the loss was, as soon as it happens, give yourself an opportunity. Give yourself the place, the space, and the grace to deal with it. That's what you do. And so, before I go into giving specific ideas, let me do this. Again, I want to encourage you guys to connect with me across social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, or YouTube. If you have not already done so, please take a quick moment to connect with me at my name is Tennille. And once you get to YouTube, you can click that subscribe button for me. I appreciate it. And so that way, once you do that, you'll be notified whenever I upload new content. And if you have not already done so, then I do encourage you to please visit my website. All you got to do is go to mynameistennille.com. And by going to that website, you will be able to stay connected with everything that I have going on, whether it's the communities I'm building, upcoming events, or even finding out various ways that you can work with me and ways that I can help you to be your best self. Again, you just got to go to the website. My name is Tennille.com. And so today's reset room, we have been talking about the need for a mental reset and what to do when your mind needs to reset. So the first part of the show, I kind of set up the circumstances under which you might need to reset. And what I have constantly said is give yourself the space and the grace to do so. So what do you do exactly? What do you do when we're talking about a mental reset? One of the things that I feel is very helpful is to do what I call a detox. Now, many of us, when we think detox, we automatically think physical, like a cleanse, colon cleanse, gut cleanse. We typically think about those things when we're talking about detoxing. So we understand that there is something in our bodies that's not good, or we're trying to get our bodies back to its best. So we cleanse our system so that way we're kind of starting back at even keel, right? Well, no. Well, I won't say no. I will say the same way we need to cleanse our bodies, we also need to cleanse our minds. And sometimes what happens, there is so much stuff that's coming at us that I believe overstimulation occurs, that, like sensory overload is so much stuff coming at you, so much stuff you're seeing. If you're always on the phone, whether it's phone calls or social media, you're always online, like so many things constantly come at you that I believe we get overstimulated and it just wears us out mentally. And so when you combine that with everything that life is already throwing at you, it gets to be a little bit too much. So to me, one of the things, or for me, one of the things that I do is detox. So what does detox look like for me? Detox looks like um I'm on social media, you know what I mean? Like what do they call it? Going dark or whatever. Like you probably not gonna see me posting for a while. You won't see me going live for a while because I can't take anything else in. And I need to just be able to go, whether it's 24 hours, 72 hours, it might be a week. It really depends on what I'm dealing with and the reason for the cleanse. So if it's, a whole lot of life stuff, because I'm not trying to insinuate that everything on social media is bad, negative, or heavy, but there are parts of social media that are bad, negative, and heavy. And so if you don't have the wherewithal to be able to successfully navigate around those things, which when you are in need of a mental reset, you don't necessarily have that capacity. You're not thinking about it. So now you're just consuming everything, and that overconsumption can just contribute to your spiraling out of control. So for me, when I'm at the place where it's like if I hear one more thing, if I see one more thing, it's gonna be too much, then I just kind of unplug. I kind of unplug. Um, Another thing that I do when we talk about the phone is if you have an iPhone, wonderful button. It's called Do Not Disturb. And so there'll be times, whether it's hours out of a day, I've been known to have my phone on Do Not Disturb for like 3 to 4 days, where unless it's absolutely just critical, I'm not hearing you. Because for me, when I need to detox, when I need to reset, I can't deal with nobody else's stuff too. You know what I mean? And this is especially important to my strong people, because what we have a tendency to do is we don't just carry our burdens, we don't just hold our stuff, we hold everybody's stuff. And so during this detox time, I can't carry nobody else's stuff. So I'm not even going to just leave it to them to not ask me to carry it. I'm going to position myself so that you can't even ask me. You know what I mean? So it's like when I get to a place where I'm overwhelmed, then we gonna do not disturb. And so I don't care. This is the reason why I got a voicemail. It says I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. I don't say I'm gonna call you back in 2 hours. I don't say I'm gonna call you back the next day. When I can, I will. You know what I mean? And so for me, detoxing, that's we are unplugging. We're unplugging from social media. We're unplugging from everyday life, because I just need to have time for me. So I can't hear your problems right now. I don't have a solution for you right now. I can't think about what you should do right now because I have to be able to focus on me. I got to focus on what I can do and being the best for myself, because if I don't get there, then I ain't never going to be able to show up at 100% to be what you need me to be. I won't be able to have that capacity. So I'm actually doing this for both of us. You know what I mean? And especially within my household, they know. Like I will send a group text out to my household from this time to this time. Please don't call me. No calls for no reason. I mean, unless again it's super duper urgent. And because it's not like I do that every day, then they good with understanding that if this door is closed, don't open it. You know what I mean? So I guess that extends to number two, which is setting boundaries. Okay. So detox is unplugging from social media, unplugging from the world. So do not disturb. Don't accept phone calls. Like allow your mind to be free from overconsumption. Allow your mind to be free from having to deal with everybody else's problems. So that way you're free to just address yours. Number two is setting boundaries, because many times the people that you have to pull from are sometimes the people you got to set boundaries with, right? So whether it's at work, whether it's at home, church, whatever your community is, then you need to be able to be in a place where you can set a boundary. Or I say set a boundary, I need to set multiple. Depending on what your reason for mental reset is. So if it's a disappointment that you're trying to bounce back from, okay, I'm trying to deal with my own stuff right now. So for the next 24 hours, I can't solve your problems. Okay. Like I'm not necessarily asking you to solve mine, because a lot of times, again, to my strong people, many times people are not stepping up for us trying to help solve our problems. They're looking for us to be their solutions or give them a solution. So right now, I don't have the capacity to do that. I don't have the capacity to do that. So I need you to give me like 24 to 48 hours. And then once I'm good, I have an answer for you. And for most people, especially when they trying to get from you something, they'll wait. They'll wait. But you have to give that boundary. You have to set that boundary. So if you're bouncing back from disappointment, if you're bouncing back, and I don't want to say grief, because grief for me is a lifelong process. Uh, you need some days more urgent than others, but I believe for the rest of your life, and again, I am not a licensed clinician. I'm not a licensed counselor. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm simply sharing what I have endured, um, and just experiences from those. And so for me, my mom has been gone for 20, right at 24 years on August 18th. There's still days where I'm thinking about it like it just happened. Yesterday, say on Father's Day, I was a mess. Like I was crying, I was really heavy throughout the day. Different parts of the day I'd be okay, but I was crying because, and it wasn't necessarily the same reason why I would shed tears on Mother's Day, but this Father's Day in particular, it was a lot, you know. And so the point that I'm making though is that you have to be able to set boundaries, but with grief, it's a little different because is I think there is a forever trigger or trauma that is attached, especially depending on who the person was. But what happens is with time, it gets more bearable. I don't even want to say it gets easier. It gets more bearable. Because I feel like when you say it gets easier, it's almost like it makes light of it. And you never stop thinking about the person, you never stop caring about the person. You just realize that they won't be here anymore. So you have to deal with that. And then you identify what was the role that they played in my life, right? Because many times that's where the grief lives too, right? The fact that this person served as this, fill in the blank for me. So now who else will do that? Because we know a lot of times for me, I know I'm an acquired taste. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I never have been. And so everybody can't deal with me. Everybody, because I have 15 thought patterns at the same time, everybody doesn't have the capacity for that. So it's like when you have somebody who has the capacity for that and then you lose them, it's like, man, now how many people I got to get who? You know what I mean? So sometimes our grief is not solely in losing the person, but it's also in trying to figure out who can play that role. And obviously, they can never fill the exact shoes, but who else can I get to serve in that capacity for my life? And so there are different ways, but again, we want to look at, because I don't want to give you all a laundry list, but I do just want to give you a few things that you can do when you're at a place where you know that your mind needs to reset. So I told you about detoxing, I told you about setting boundaries, and then I just want you to find um a hobby. Like that's the third and final thing that I'll end with on today. Find something that you can do that gives your mind a break. So whether that is, going for a walk, listening to music, dancing, playing a game. I don't care what kind of game it is, a card game, a board game, a word game, whatever. Playing some type of game. Something that watching a show that makes you laugh, like you want to do something that takes the load off of your mind, okay? Something that does not call for you to have to think, for you to have to be responsible, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because sometimes that's the thing about mental detox. You always have to show up and be in a particular way and be a particular, a particular, you got to show up in a particular way. And when you're trying to reset, you don't want to have that responsibility on you. Like I just want to be right here. And that be it. Not that I gotta be dressed a certain type of way, that I gotta look a certain type of way, that I got no. I just want to exist. And the fact that I exist be enough. And so What I have found helpful again is find that hobby, go for that walk, where you can just clear your head and you can talk out whatever it is that you're, whether you talk it out loud or think it in your head, just have that time to process unapologetically, listen to that music or watch that show, find that activity, the dance, the game, board game, word game, card game, whatever it may be, get a hobby that makes you feel better. Some people go to the gym, um, whatever it may be, where it's, I don't have to think about nothing. I don't have to let nothing in. I'm just allowing it out. So all of the stresses, because I know, and this is exceptionally correct and the thing to do when you're trying to, when your mind needs to be reset after burnout. So you done did so much, won't do nothing else now. So what, and to me, for this, I would be doing this consistently, right? Not just after I've had a nervous breakdown, not just after I burn out. So every time I finish burning out, I'm doing this. No, this specifically, I would do all of them. I feel that you should do proactively, but especially when it comes to this, so that you don't have to recover from burnout, so that you are making sure that I am constantly doing well for myself and about myself. Every day or every other day, I'm going to make sure that I have time to walk or sing or dance or watch my two, whatever your hobby is. I would even encourage you to not do it once a week, but I would encourage you to do it every day. One of my good girlfriends, she says all the time, sometimes nothing is the only something you should be doing. And so every day, what I have been doing for the last, I don't even know how many years now, you make sure that every day you have at least 2 hours where you can just do nothing. So whether your nothing looks like taking a nap, whether your nothing looks like watching a show, whether your nothing looks like, going to the mall, do something for you at least 2 hours of every day. Something where you don't have to um, like check in with nobody else. You don't owe nothing for nobody else. This is just something for me. So the reason why I say do nothing is so that when people call you and they ask what you doing, nothing. Well, can you do? No, no, no. This is my scheduled nothing for the next 2 hours. I'm doing nothing. So I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing in this time. And so in either case, guys, that has been the show for today, what to do when your mind needs a reset. And so I hope that you found today helpful for us to talk about what it looks like. First of all, what are the circumstances in which you may need a reset? Because if you're living this thing called life, it is going to be necessary for you to proactively reset your mind. However often that is totally up to you, but it is going to be necessary. So please get in the habit of assessing yourself, being in tune with yourself so that you can become more proactive and take that break before life hands you a nervous breakdown. Lay down before life sits you down. And it does not make you less than, it doesn't make you inferior, it doesn't make you weak because you recognize your weaknesses. That is probably one of the strongest things, the best things that you can do for yourself. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And again, if you have not already connected with me across social media, you can find and follow me at my name